Hi, everybody. So I'm sorry I can't be with you guys today. So what I wanted to do in place of me being there is I created a video of basically me going through and teaching the lesson that I would have taught you if I was there with you guys. And I created it into an ed puzzle. That way, if there was questions that I would have asked you during class or moments where I would ask you to use your calculator and, find the calculations for me, there will be moments in this video where questions will pop up and ask you those same questions. So hopefully, even though I'm not with you, you'll kind of have the same feel as if I was there, where you're able to still participate in the same way and you're still able to learn a lesson, and I don't have to lose another day of being able to be with you guys and actually go through a lesson. So to get us started, we are starting a new unit. We have left Unit 3 budgeting in the past, and we are moving on to Unit 4. This unit is called gross and net income. I know we have learned what those two terms are, but we really only just touched the surface. It's good that we know what those two things are to get us started, but what we're really going to want to focus on in this unit is jobs, how to earn money, the type of pay we would get depending on the type of job that we have. So if you have a part-time job, if you have a full-time job, if you work overtime, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, those are all the things that we're going to learn about in this unit. Today's topic is going to be pretty simple and straightforward. I'm going to start simple since I can't be with you guys today. I don't want you to have anything too difficult in case, you have questions or need my help. So keeping it simple today, and then we'll pick up and keep moving on after this point. So today's focus is going to be on hourly pay. And just to get us started, I'm going to kind of explain to you the type of job where you might get paid hourly. So I'm just going to read this little paragraph that I have written here. It says, some jobs pay you a fixed amount of money for each hour you work. For example, the local cinema or the movie theater might pay you $7.50 an hour to sweep up popcorn and tear ticket stubs. The $7.50 is the hourly rate the cinema or movie theater pays you per hour. So there's going to be two vocab words that you're going to learn today. The first one is hourly rate. And in simple terms, basically what the hourly rate is, it's just how much money. So I'm going to write this down if this decides it wants to work. I'm using a new stylus and it doesn't seem to want to be my friend right now. Come on, let's see. What's going on? Sorry, guys. There we go. How much money you make per hour. So if you work the type of job, and typically these types of jobs is a part-time job. So if you work the type of job that pays you per hour, that is your hourly rate. So in this case, we were looking at the example of the person who works in a movie theater. Every hour, they make $7.50. That's their hourly rate. It's the amount that they're getting paid per hour. And then there's another term that we're going to learn called the straight time pay. So your straight time pay is the total. Sorry, let me write this down. What is going on with this thing? The total amount of money earned after a certain amount of hours. Okay, so again, real quick review. Your hourly rate is how much you're going to make per hour. Your straight time pay is how much you're going to earn after a certain amount of hours. So if you think about that for a second, if I earn $7.50 for 1 hour, but let's say I work 10 hours, what operation do you guys think I'm going to use? We're going to obviously use multiplication, because what we could do is we could take 750, and if I'm working 10 hours, I could add it 10 times. But we know that adding such a long number for that long of a time, it takes too much time. So it's easier for us to just use multiplication to get our answer faster. So we will be using multiplication. So our formula that we're going to use today is our straight time pay formula, which is equal to your hourly rate, just writing this down, hourly rate times the hours worked. Okay, very simple. So how much you're getting paid times how many hours you work. That's it. There's something that I kind of just want to show you, because you're going to see it in a couple of these word problems, and I just don't want it to confuse you. I'm not testing you on this. It's just something that I think I should explain, so that when you see it, you're like, oh, okay, I understand what they mean by that. So not everyone works an exact full hour. So what I mean by that is, let's say over the past week, you worked 10 hours. So those are 10 full hours. But it's possible that maybe someone doesn't want to work 10 hours. Maybe instead they actually work 9 hours and 30 minutes, or 12 hours and 15 minutes. So you're going to get paid for working 12 hours and 15 minutes, not for working 13 hours, because you don't work a full 13 hours. But when we do this in math, they don't write 12 hours and 15 minutes. They write it as decimals. So I want you to just be able to recognize it. So if you see this and you're not thinking to yourself, how does a person work 10.25 hours? What does that mean? That's just the math way of writing 10 hours and a certain amount of minutes. So the three that are the most important are 0.25, 0.50, and 0.75. I'll tell you what those three mean. You might get word problems that aren't one of those three numbers. You might get, who knows, you can get 625, you could get 43, you could get anything. It's not really realistic, because usually people do work a certain amount of hours or something kind of even, but you could. So I just wanted you to understand that. So for these three, I'll tell you now. We'll start with 10.50. So 10.50, what is going on with my stylus? There we go. 10.50. So the 10 means how many hours he worked or she worked. So 10 hours. And then it says 0.50. So that 0.50 is representing the amount of minutes. So I want you to think of 50 out of 100, right? 50 out of 100, that's half, right? So if we're talking about time now, if 60 minutes is 1 full hour, what is half of that? Half of 60 is 30. So this is 10 hours and 30 minutes. So if you ever see 0.50, it's referring to 30 minutes. So the other two are 0.25 and 0.75. 0.25 is less than 50. So it's not 30 minutes. So again, if we think of time, 25 is like a quarter of your way there. So 30 minutes is halfway there. A quarter of the way there is actually 15 minutes. So 10.25 would mean 10 hours. 10 hours. And I won't write it. 10 hours, 15 minutes. All right, and then the last one here, 10.75. So this one is more than 30, but it's less than 60 because it's not a full hour. So I don't need to think of somewhere right in between 30 minutes and 60 minutes. So that would be 10 hours and 45 minutes. All right, so those are three of like the big ones that can come up because it's more realistic. So someone might work 10 hours and 30 minutes or might work 10 hours and 45 minutes. They don't work the full extra hour, okay? If you see anything besides those three numbers, don't worry about what it means. You don't need to know. It does not affect your answer to your problem at all. But just understand that that decimal is just referring to a certain amount of minutes that person worked, okay? That's all you got to know. So let's try a couple problems. So we're going to keep in mind our formula, which is hourly rate times hours worked. And let's do an example together. So the first example, I'm going to read it to you and then we'll break it down. So Shauna Jackson is a mail clerk. she earns $8.40 per hour. Last week, she worked 40 hours. And this week, she worked 39.5 hours. So there's that 39.5, which is the same thing as 39.50. So that means she worked 39 hours and 30 minutes, right? 50 is halfway between, halfway in the middle, it's half. So half of 60 is 30. Okay. What is her straight time pay for each week? Then find the total amount she earned after those 2 weeks. So we're going to first start with last week. So last week, I'm going to remind you, she worked 40 hours and she earns 8.40 an hour. So our formula tells us that we have to take, I'm going to go scroll back up, our hourly rate. So how much Shauna is making, that's what we're going to take first. So she makes 8.40 an hour. That's my hourly rate. And I'm going to multiply it with how many hours she worked last week, which was 40. Okay, and then we're going to solve that. So we're going to go to our calculators, and we're going to do 8.40 times 40, which is equal to 336. So that's how much money Shauna earned last week. Now let's do it for this week. This week, she worked 39.5 hours. So she worked this. She earns the same amount of money per week. That doesn't change. Per hour. So it's staying at 8.40. But now we're going to multiply with her new time, which was 39.5. So remember, we don't need to change this. You don't have to write 39 and 30 minutes. I just wanted you to know what that meant. That's all. It's not going to change your problem. You're going to keep it the way it is. And now we're going to multiply those two numbers. And you should have gotten $331.80. All right, and to finish this off, we're going to find the total amount that she earned after those 2 weeks. So when we hear the word total, we should think of addition, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to add whatever we got for last week and for this week together. So 336 plus $331.80. And that will give us $667.80. Okay, you solved it. So, pretty straightforward, very simple formula, very simple concept. So nothing, too crazy today. So let's try another example and we'll see how much you guys are able to do without my help. So number 1, it says a local car wash pays you $8 per hour. Last summer, you worked 32.25 hours a week. Let's see who can remember this. 32.25. How many hours and minutes is that? 32 hours and then 25. So that's a quarter of the way there. So if you think of a full hour, 60 minutes. So a quarter of that would be 15 minutes. So that's 32 hours and 15 minutes. Okay. Hours a week. That's how long she works or you work. What was your total straight time pay for the entire week? All right. So we know our formula is our hourly rate. I'm going to just write that down. Hourly rate times hours worked. Hours. All right, so what's our hourly rate? Our hourly rate is 8. And our hours worked is 32.25. And when we throw that in the when we throw that in the calculator, we're going to get $258. So that's how much you would earn based on how many hours you're working and how much you get paid. Okay, it's pretty straightforward. Moving on to the next one. Ronaldo is a financial consultant. He earns $25 per hour and works 32.50 hours a week. Once again, that's a little review. 32.50 means 32 hours and 30 minutes. halfway between 60, 0 and 60. All right, what is his straight time pay? So we could just copy and paste this formula. How about that? So we don't have to rewrite it. Oh, I took something extra with me. I don't want that. Okay. So hourly rate, how much does Ronaldo earn an hour? $25. How many hours did he work last week or a week? 32.5. So we're going to multiply those together to get our final answer. And you should have gotten $812.50. Okay, nice job. Check out number 3. Brianna is a sales associate. She earns $12.50 per hour. Last week, she worked $26.25 hours, and this week she worked 30.50 hours. What was her total straight time pay for the 2 weeks? So this one's a little different. It's actually similar to the example one we did before. So this is giving us an amount per hour, which is $12.50, but it tells us how much she worked last week and how much she worked this week. So we want to not just know her straight time pay for 1 week, but for both altogether. So we can do this in 2 ways. We could figure out how much it was the first week, then figure out how much the second week, and then add them together. Or we could add the times together now to get a total amount of hours that she worked in 2 weeks and just use the formula for that amount of time instead. That actually will probably take less work. But I can show both methods so we can see. So we're going to start with method 1, which is just what we did before. So method 1, we're going to start with the first week. So week 1, we're going to start with how much she gets paid per hour, $12.50, and how many hours she worked. So she worked 26.25. So we're going to just multiply those together. 12.50 times 26.25. 12.50. And you should have gotten, you might have to round here, $328.13. Okay, so that's the first week. Now we're looking at week 2. The hourly rate does not change. Still making $12.50 an hour, but the time did change. This time, she worked 30.50. So multiplying those two numbers together, we should get $381.25. I'm sorry, my handwriting is horrible on this. Okay, obviously that makes sense. She earned more because she worked more hours. And now to find the total, we could just add these two together. So we're going to find our total. We're going to take 328.13 and we're going to add 381.25. And we get $709.38. All right, so that's method 1. Now that did take a little while. I'm going to just quickly show you your other option if you want to do method 2 instead. So method 2, what we could do is instead of doing 1 week and then doing the second week, we could just figure out, well, how many hours did she work in total? So I could take the first set of hours was just 26.25, and I could just add the second week's hours, which is 30.50. So if you add those two together, you're going to get $56. Not $56, I'm sorry, this is the amount of hours. 56 hours and 0.75, which is 45 minutes. All right, so I could take this and I can use that in my formula instead. So I don't have to do it twice, I just do it once. So you take your hourly rate, which we know from before is $12.50, and multiply it with our new amount of hours, which is 56.75. We're going to see if this gives us the same exact amount. So I just went, and what I'm getting in my calculator is 709.38, which looks like the exact same thing that I got over here. So 2 methods, I don't know what you prefer. If you think the first method just makes more sense to you and you want to do it that way, you are more than welcome to. If you're like, oh, method 2 is quicker and easier, I like that, you can feel free to do that. But sometimes people don't always think, oh, well, if I work 2 hours, 2 weeks, why don't I just add all those hours all together instead of doing it separately? But it's whatever makes more sense to you, okay? There's no right or wrong. You choose whatever you like. All right, last problem of the day. Here we go. A piano player earns $9.25 per hour to play at a local coffee shop. This week, he worked 10 hours. Next week, he will work 16 hours. What will the difference be in his straight time pay between this week and next week? Okay, well, we know how to find the straight time pay, but before we do that, there was a word that stuck out to me. What will the difference be? This is a little different than the problems we've done. What does the word difference mean? Well, hopefully you guys remember that it means subtraction, right? Let me just write subtraction out. Subtract. All right, but what are we going to be subtracting? Well, I want to know what's the difference between this week's pay and next week's pay. And the only way to do that is if I know how much I'm making this week and I know how much I'm making next week. So that's what we need to figure out. So in this case, I don't really have much of an option between method 1 and method 2. I kind of have to go with method 1 because I do need to know how much I'm making in the first week and how much I'm going to make in the second week. So we're going to start with this week. And we're going to take our hourly rate, which is 9.25. And of course, we're multiplying with how many hours he worked this week. So this week he worked 10 hours. Okay. So take a moment to throw that in your calculator. And if you did it correctly, you should get $92.50. All right, that's this week. That's how much he's making. Next week, he is working a little longer. He's working 16 hours. So your hourly rate stays the same. That does not change. But this time he's working 16 hours. So go ahead, throw in your calculator, multiply those two numbers, and you should have gotten $148. All right, so we have our two amounts, 92.50 in the first, 148 in the second, and we have to find the difference. So, of course, we're going to subtract, and we're going to start by subtracting the bigger number first. So we're going to take 148, and we're going to subtract 92.50. And when you do that, you should get a lot of fives, $55.50. Again, I apologize. My handwriting is atrocious on this iPad. Hopefully you could see those numbers okay. Let me try again. All right, best I could do. Okay, guys, so we got through it, even without me being there. Hopefully you didn't find this worksheet to be too difficult. It is a pretty straightforward formula, but it's not even about memorizing the formula, because if you just think about it, you guys knew before we even did the formula that you're going to be multiplying. It just makes the most sense to say, if you're making this much in 1 hour, how much you're going to make in a couple hours, that you multiply. So that's all it really is. And then of course there's a couple that are thrown in here to trick you up a little bit, finding the difference or finding the total after 2 weeks, something like that. So slightly different, a little bit more challenging, but nothing too crazy. All right, guys, so we'll review quickly tomorrow. It's Tuesday, so there's no homework, and we will pick this up and continue out tomorrow. All right, everybody, I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.